Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Travis Schwertfeger, who's the executive chairman of Many Peaks, a junior miner focusing on adding value through cost-effective mineral exploration and discovery for advancing gold and copper projects in West Africa. Travis is a geologist with over 20 years global industry experience, primarily in gold and copper, working across Australia, Africa, South and North America. He's going to tell us a little bit more about Many Peaks, what they're looking to achieve in West Africa, and also, I suppose, a little bit more technically discuss the geology in the various regions of West Africa, which is, I suppose, a little bit unique to the area. Travis, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, really well. I appreciate you having me on, Rob. Great to meet you.
Yeah. As I mentioned, obviously, you're a trained geologist. So I just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, how you got into the mining industry, and how your career has developed to what it is today.
I guess I went to university in Colorado. I'm from the U.S. originally. Got jobs working underground in Nevada coming out of university. Converted into some exploration, which brought me to Australia in 2002. So I've been over here for more than 20 years. But from there, worked all over the globe. So it's a good fly-in, fly-out culture here in Perth, which has afforded me an opportunity to work in a lot of locations and see a lot of different types of rocks, and particularly in West Africa, where I've probably got about 9 years of experience out of more than my more than 20 years. Working for probably 4 different companies and across 5 different countries in West Africa.
And I suppose what made you make the move from Canada to Australia and obviously live there permanently?
Yeah, I guess it was the opportunity, as I said, to get into exploration. I was in production roles prior. This was my first real exploration opportunity with Newmont Mining. It was when they did a merger with Normandy back in 2002, and there was a shuffle of experience to integrate the cultures. That brought me here, and just really fell in love with Australia. And like I said, if you're in the US, you kind of live in whatever little town is closest to the mine, where here I had an opportunity to base my family in a big city and not move around so much, but still get exposure to a lot of different project sites.
Many Peaks is obviously focused on the Côte d'Ivoire in West Africa. I just wanted to just give us an overview of the country and what makes it a good place for mining. And I suppose for listeners that are not less familiar with mining in Africa and especially obviously West Africa.
Yeah, I guess, firstly, Many Peaks is a couple of years old. We listed in 2022, and really the company kind of spawned out of COVID when I wasn't able to travel overseas. We became focused on some Australian opportunities. So actually, we listed on some Queensland assets where we had some exploration success. But now that we can kind of travel internationally and see some new opportunities, in Africa, we see a lot of multi-million ounce discoveries, some real company maker type opportunities. So I think it's just in May this year we completed a transaction to acquire these projects, and have pivoted a lot of our focus and expenditure onto the West African opportunities, particularly the opportunity to get into Côte d'Ivoire. I mean, all of West Africa, it's the Man Craton. They're Proterozoic rocks. It's similar to the rocks that the Abitibi Belt hosts in Canada or the Eastern Goldfields. Each are hundreds of millions of ounces discovered. You have that same Proterozoic greenstone style gold mineralization in West Africa, which has only really seen a lot of exploration attention over the last 20 years. But that's resulted in West Africa being the fastest growing gold production center in the world. So it's seen more increase in both gold production and gold discoveries over the last 20 years. A lot of that is from the neighboring countries. Of course, Ghana has a long history of gold mining to the east of Côte d'Ivoire. And in the last 20 years, a lot of gold was discovered in Burkina and Mali, who had good sovereign risk profiles to them and solid mining code reforms to them in the early 2000s. Brought a lot of exploration investment into them. Côte d'Ivoire has a bit more history of conflict, civil war, and a coup through the thousands and early teens, but have had stable elections, and everything's kind of flipped there, where now you get a bit more political risk. In Burkina Mali, they've become much more challenging to work in from a securities perspective. But Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, along the coast of West Africa is still quite safe to work and has come around from a sovereign risk profile into a much better standing. Côte d'Ivoire hosts the largest proportion of this greenstone belt. Over 30% of the Proterozoic terrain hosting gold is there in Côte d'Ivoire. The rest spread around the other countries, but proportionally it's seen the least amount of exploration versus those neighboring countries. So we believe it's quite ripe for a generation of discoveries over this coming decade.
I suppose I forgot to ask you initially, one of you can just tell us a little bit about Many Peaks. Obviously, you mentioned you've been around for a few years now. Just wondered how you started the business and how the business has moved forward over the last few years to what it is today.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, we kind of spawned out of COVID. Previously, I was working on porphyry systems in Peru and Ecuador when COVID hit. The clampdown happened for international travel, hit Australia particularly hard. It was just impossible to travel. So privately began exploring several opportunities, and we found projects of interest that we did a bit of geophysical and mapping work on in Queensland. We wanted to be able to drill those and see if we could develop resources. So we brought those to market in early 2022, got those projects financed. Grew a little bit and added to the portfolio. We had quite a few successful drill hits, but working towards something that would be kind of a 500,000 to 1 million ounce type targets, which would have a large hurdle in terms of capex and being able to develop. Corporately we decided we want to look for larger systems and higher grades, both of which we see in Côte d'Ivoire.
And I suppose, and you probably covered a little bit of this, what do you, and obviously being a geologist, what do you see about the geology in Côte d'Ivoire and I suppose neighbouring countries within West Africa, and why it's become such a prolific region? And I suppose compare that to some of the regions that you've worked in South America and obviously in Australia.
Yeah, I think probably the closest correlation is the Eastern Goldfields. It's very similar rocks, but a different, what we call regolith, or the landscape is quite different. So it presents different challenges in terms of the exploration methods that you use. Australia's quite flat, but very well exposed. Methods such as soil geochemistry, direct-to-air core drilling are extremely effective tools. And you can go out and in grid drill areas with the more cost-effective air core drilling method versus RC or diamond quite effectively. When you get into Côte d'Ivoire, just a little bit higher density of population or more terrain. Also, I believe a lot of the West African shield is not conducive to more simple geochemical techniques like soils. You get a lot of what we call, the French call cuirasse, because a lot of it's francophone there, or ferrocrete, but it's an iron concrete. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, when this was more of a tropical rainforest, all the iron in the soil profile was leached, and it forms a several meter thick layer of hard iron-rich rock that now that all of that soil above it's been stripped away, and it's a more arid Sahel environment. That deeper iron layer is now at the surface and forms plateaus. And that high iron content rock is also leached of gold. So to go around and do soils, you see a very low gold anomalism in your surface soils, and a bit more difficult to chase versus being over the top of similar rocks in Australia. So that change of history and that weathering process requires different techniques. So we're implementing a lot of auger drilling just to be able to drill through that. That cuirass is typically 2 to 8 meters in thickness, can be a little bit thicker in some places, but you really need to punch through that depleted horizon at the surface and get into the clay saprolite. It's still a weathered rock underneath it, but in that clay saprolite you'll see the true endowment of gold in the rock.
Obviously, you've just mentioned about some of the techniques that you're using. What other sort of modern exploration techniques are being used in Côte d'Ivoire and obviously West Africa? And is there any sort of innovative approaches being employed more?
Yeah, I think hyperspectral imagery has been around for a while, but I think this increased understanding in the regolith and the landscape of West Africa, we're now adapting those tools to map these iron cuirasses or ferrocretes. We can map those plateaus in more detail with the satellite imagery. On the margins of them, where they've actually been eroded away, you get what we call breakaway slopes. The clay material underneath them erodes away quite quickly, so you get a bit more relief in and around these margins. And this is where a lot of the discoveries in the past 20 years are. Probably a lot of the large mines are within a kilometer or so of these breakaway slopes because they're little windows into that saprolite. And beyond them, you would have depositional cover, and in the cuirass, a depleted zone for gold. So most of the discoveries now are close to these, but some of these cuirasses can be 20, 30 kilometers across. So there's some very large windows of ground throughout West Africa, particularly in Côte d'Ivoire, that need some bit more modern exploration techniques. So we're accompanying those new tools to define the correct exploration method on the ground. And then what's challenging, I guess, is going out and doing an auger program, waiting a couple of months for results, coming back to infill. It's a timely process. So in Australia, they've also just recently developed a method to detect gold with a XRF. Previously, gold, it had to be 1 or 2 ppm, economic grades. It wasn't used as a geochemical tool. But we now get below 20 ppb detection limit from an XRF through a method that was developed by the CSIRO, which is a government branch that does technical advancement here in Australia, and that was given to a company called Portable PPB for commercialization, and that's just been rolled out on a commercial scale in the last couple of years. So we're currently implementing that. That gives us 24-hour turnaround on assays. Or less, actually. It's closer to about 8-hour turnaround now. We can collect a sample, bring it back, and with minimal processing, be able to get a gold reading from our portable XRF gun at the project site. And that allows us to make decisions on where we infill and follow up a lot more quickly.
I just want to tell us about some of the projects and assets that you've got in Côte d'Ivoire, and I suppose what's a little bit unique about them.
We've got 3 projects. 2 are more advanced. Our Furky project was where there's some success by Predictive and Toro back in 2018-19. Predictive originally did a transaction on the ground, but then, I won't say distracted, but became more focused on the Bankan discovery in Guinea. And their exploration budget in Côte d'Ivoire was reduced, so they brought Toro in as a partner to advance the projects there on some highly prospective ground that they had. Toro was then taken out by Resolute for their assets elsewhere in West Africa. So again, just the attention in Côte d'Ivoire wasn't quite there. And then this ground was picked up by Tarocco, who acquired it from Resolute, who quickly became focused on their Afema project, and they've just advanced that to a 2.5 million ounce JORC resource and are having a lot of success. So yeah, I guess there's other prioritized opportunities that have seen these intercepts of 30 meters at 3 grams per ton. We have over 90 meters at 2 grams per ton from surface on some of the intercepts. So we're seeing a very good true width and high grade intercepts in the first 18 diamond holes at the Furky project that still need a lot of follow-up and haven't seen a lot of activity over the last 4 or 5 years. We've picked those projects up, and that's our flagship and priority focus, and we see some good 3 to 5 million ounce potential in that belt to be worked on. We also have our Ogeni project in the northwest of Côte d'Ivoire, where we join the Awale Newmont ground, who have had recent discovery drilling. They haven't advanced to maiden resource yet, but they've got 2 prospects there with some very exciting drill intercepts, including one project that's about 7 kilometers from our boundary. And that structural corridor trends, we have about 30 kilometers of strike of that structural corridor across our project, which sits in the center of Awale's land holdings in northwest Côte d'Ivoire.
If there's obviously investors listening to the podcast, I just wondered if you could summarize, I suppose, 3 reasons as to why Many Peaks should be added to their watch list, and obviously what they would be.
Yeah, I guess the first is, we are aggressive explorers and we're utilizing modern exploration techniques. I believe you need to implement innovative techniques at this stage of exploration globally. A lot of the easy deposits have all been found. The outcropping ones, we're not really looking under cover, but they are somewhat blind targets that we're chasing through minimal cover. But you need to conceptually understand what your targets are in your exploration space, and then use the most cost-effective methods to, as cheaply as possible, define your mineral resources. So I think we've got the best tools and team for advancing these projects. I think we have probably some of the best ground position sitting where we are at both the Ogene and Furke projects. Also we have a very tight corporate structure. Our company's been around for less than 2 years. We've recently done a financing, which still puts us at just over 80 million shares on issue. And I think with a few successful drill holes, we would quite quickly see a substantial re-rate in terms of company valuation. Our EV currently sits around $6 or $7 million. Companies with a few successful drill intercepts and a path towards discovery are sitting at 30 or 40 million EVs. And then companies such as Turaco, who have recently put some significant runs on the board in terms of mineral resource, are sitting at the plus 300 mil market cap. And we see the potential to move towards that level over the next 2 to 3 years.
Lastly, what's the outlook for sort of the next 6 to 12 months? As Many Peaks looking to achieve in that space of time?
We'll be focused on exploration and drilling across both those Ogene and Furke targets. Also, just to maintain a pipeline, we've picked up a more early stage project where we'll be doing the initial soils and auger work to define new targets. At Furke, it was partially covered by auger, by Toro and Predictive in 2018-19. We'll be following up on that work to systematically cover the entire project and rank the best targets for follow-up RC and diamond drilling on that target. We'll be implementing that drilling within the next 6 months, including follow-up on the high-grade intercepts that are already there, looking to expand the footprint of that existing discovery. Ogene, we were able to complete that process before the wet season. So we acquired these projects in May. A wet season typically starts in July. We were able to get 7,000 meter drill campaign in of auger drilling predominantly to rank the best targets, and we're now ready, as we're coming into the dry season this month, to aggressively get in there with some air core drilling, some deeper, more penetrative drilling to start testing those targets. But we've got about 16 kilometers of mineralized trend there to assess, so we'll be working our way into that and finding the best targets over the next 6 months for diamond drilling.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us an update on Many Peaks and obviously explaining the various exploration techniques that are coming to the market and obviously you're using in West Africa. Really insightful for obviously geologists listening, but people that are not necessarily technically competent geologists. Hopefully that's given them a little bit of education on some of the different techniques that can be used.
Hopefully it wasn't overly technical and made sense, but we're passionate about it and we get excited about it. We're looking forward to the next 6 months and the results that come out of it.
Yeah, great. If our audience wants to follow yourself and follow the company and follow any news flow that you put out there, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
We're on both LinkedIn and I guess it's Twitter, and we're available on our website at www.manypeaks.com.au.
Yeah, we include those in the show notes accompanying this anyway.
Perfect.
For easy access. Well, good luck for the remainder of the year going into 2025. And perhaps you can come on sometime next year and give us an update and see how those exploration plays have advanced.
Yeah. Look forward to talking to you about results and plans of working towards resources in the coming year.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide to people within our industry, but also people outside of our industry. We need to improve the image of and the branding of our industry. We can only do this by sharing information and knowledge of our industry. So thank you for listening. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.